We have a draft map that will be coming out. I think we would actually publish it for public comment this summer, or depending on if we can meet with ACRS or not before the draft. And so with this better infrastructure we have, we feel that we'll be able to do a more streamlined review. And so our plan is to get the review done within that metric, so 12 and a half months plus any time for Dominion. And the clock, I guess the clock would start once we actually accept the application for technical review. So as I mentioned, our acceptance review, we plan to get that done within 30 days. If there were no RSIs, then the clock would start at that time that we accepted it. If there was a round of RSIs, we would wait for your response, determine if it was sufficient, then accept the application once we had enough information. That's sort of when that clock starts, if that's helpful. And also, one more thing, Paul, sorry. And when we do accept the application for detailed technical review, we will include the schedule in that letter. So the letter we send to you, it will include the schedule and, assuming one round of RAIs, what the issuance date would be for the renewal.
Paul, can I ask a clarifying question? Chris, tying in with that, when does the licensee receive a punched ticket timely? Initial submittal, sufficiency review pass? Because we definitely want to be timely.
That's actually a good question, Tom. I would want to check on that and get back to you, so I'll take that as an action item. My thought is when you first submit it on the docket, and so once it gets placed in Adams, even if we haven't made a call yet on if it's accepted, I think that should meet, or as far as the timely renewal and the requirements in Part 72, I think that is the time period for that. But I will take that as an action item, and I'll verify with our OGC to make sure.
That's a good question. Too, because on the plant side, it has to be not only timely, it has to be documented as sufficient in 5 years. I started thinking about that 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I started going through the regs. So I came to the conclusion that it has to be timely. And I think even with the last couple of applicants, I think the sufficiency was past their expiration date. So, but please check. I'm checking too.
Yeah, I will.
You're all clear on that.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and I'll take that as an action item. And then what I'll plan to do is in the meeting summary, we'll include essentially the answer. Make sure we have the right answer, because I would want to go back, look at the actual language in 7242, make sure that it's upon submittal.
But follow-up to the schedule. Is there a plant visit in there anywhere? A site visit from the staff?
That's actually a good question, and we've been talking about that just as a process, because on the NRR side, sometimes there is a site visit, and that's pretty fruitful. The staff is able to look at a lot of information there. At this stage, I don't think we know yet whether, we can just do things on paper, or if there would be any benefit to coming out to the site and looking at any documents to sort of do an audit. But that's something that we can keep open and consider. And I think, John, did you want to add anything?
If you think about the reactor renewal, why are we there? We go there to look at your operating experience. Obviously, there's not a lot now, but we're hoping in the future there will be with the new info database. Imagine in the future that kind of visit much more meaningful. The second thing that's done in the NRR space when they visit for license, they look at their current just to verify the current procedures are lining up with application. So it's not quite the same thing to look at right now. I mean, you have some procedures, but just not a lot. So I was thinking, in my own mind, I'm thinking that it's more of a possibility in the future when there's more operating. But
back when we did Surrey the first time, there was a visit. We were at the courthouse, I think?
Yes.
It was to go over the REI response at high level, environmental level. That's why I was asking the question.
Yeah. And we can keep that open and see if there would be a benefit to that.
So if I heard you right, the fitness review considering supplement.
Yes, you mean the renewal supplement that would come in 2017? Yes.
Yeah.
Al, you mentioned earlier that we were forward-looking, but that's Paul alluded to the fact that within our OEs, if you will, paying quite a bit of attention to the RSI and REI and other applicants.
some things, a lot of them we try to include additional information. Some things we feel is relevant to our situation. So I was trying to, I just wanted to get that on the table as efficiency items. So, I'd be interested in the regulation that we want to be received now.
You're referring to past Dominion applications?
No, industry applications for this on.
Yes. So I think a lot of those questions could have been answered by looking at our SAR. When we met the initial regulations for licensing the ISPC facility, there's a lot of good information in there that, for instance, certain things were required, and it's clearly stated in our SAR. So, I think that needs to be.
Obviously, it's a reflection back on the utility. That's not taken lightly. That comes from the top down pretty fast. So I just want to make sure that there's some relevance to that. Efficiency doesn't mean sufficiency, but just ask that strong consideration be put into before that determination is made. And we follow the process. It is what it is. All right, anybody else from Dominion have a question?
With that, I guess we have one member of the public in the room. Did you have any questions?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. And I think we have some members of the public on the phone. Do any of you have any questions for the NRC? And I will say, we do have Dominion representatives here. You are not, you do not need to respond to questions, but NRC staff will try to respond to your questions or follow up with information if we don't have the information here. So with that, I'll go ahead and open up the phone lines.
Yes, hi, this is Erica Gray. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Erica.
Hi, I'm calling from Richmond, Virginia. First of all, I want to let you guys know that your audio is not all that clear, and there's been a lot of intermittent going on, so hopefully y'all will address that later. But I have several questions. The first one is, for this independent spent fuel storage installation renewal license, is this only covering the TN32s or also the new homes?
TN32. And the new homes, is it fair to say that's under your general license? Okay. Yeah, so just the TN32s, Erica.
Okay. Well, the other question I have, as it goes for Dominion inspecting the bottom of the canisters they chose, what camera did they use?
It was a GoPro camera.
Okay, yes, because at the meeting, I guess it must have been some months back, I know that it was recommended that Dominion purchase a special camera that would actually probably be able to see a little bit better and detect better of the cracking, so I guess Dominion decided not to go with that recommendation. That's kind of shameful, actually. And I also wanted to ask, as it goes for the...
Erica, hold on one second. And maybe in your application it will talk about whether the inspections, if they met the VT1 or VT3 requirements, right? So that will be detailed, Erica, in the application, how the inspection, I guess, met the requirements of the...
Yes, this is John Wise at the NRC. And that's one of the things we'll be looking at. I mean, what we're looking for on these inspections, that these inspections are demonstrated to be capable of seeing what they're supposed to see. And part of that was alluded to briefly today about that visual card that's placed on the bottom of the canister that they use to demonstrate that this camera is capable of having sufficient resolution to find what we're looking for. And so we'll be independently evaluating that when we see the application.
Well, I can appreciate that, but please go back and talk to your experts that recommended a special camera be purchased. So I guess Dominion decided to still go with the GoPro, even though y'all's experts were the one that recommended something better be used.
Hi, Erica. This is Al Santos. Yeah, John's one of our experts on those areas. The point was that at the time when we were mentioning it, that you need to be able to find what the aging mechanism that you're looking for. And at the time when at that public meeting that we talked about, we were talking about looking at cameras that can meet the VT1 and VT3 criteria that's per ASME code. That's and we were saying, well, these are certain other cameras that can be used to achieve that. What they've done, from what we've heard today, is achieve that with this GoPro camera. And what as John was saying, is that we're going to be looking to make sure that those criteria that they put forward in what we've said is the VT3, VT1, VT3 criteria, is then we're checking it to the aging mechanisms. Now, tracking is not an aging mechanism for this TN32 system because it's not a continuous field system in these kinds of chloride-rich environments, or not here, but in other locations like marine environments. For these systems, it's not the stress corrosion tracking. It's not an active mode of degradation for these systems. So there's a difference between this and what the cracks that we're concerned with other systems.
Well, as it goes for, I understand that they were saying something about they used some tape to do a diagram, I guess, on the bottom of it so they could take little shots and pictures. I didn't understand that. Did they take all the little squares? Have all pictures been taken in all of them, or how many?
Well, this is John Weiss. Speaking as somebody that was present at that section, what we observed was they did essentially gridded out an area such that when they ran their camera in, they had a gauge of where they were. Now, they did not stop and take a picture at every position. They took a picture at a position where something looked possibly interesting. And so they're not, I don't believe from what I heard today and what I saw that day, but they took a lot of pictures of pristine surfaces. But again, going back, they are going to be, as far as the inspections are concerned, whether they're demonstrated to be qualified to find what it is they're supposed to find, we're going to be keying in on, did they prove it out by an ASME reference card that's an industry standard for proving out whether your camera can resolve the feature of interest. So we're going to verify that. We'll look into that.
Yeah, I would definitely hope so because, we're only talking about them lifting up one canister out of the, what are there, 27 or something there. So I would hope that at least out of one canister they're going to lift up and look at, that it's really taken a really good look. The other question I have is, are any of the TN32s that are in this renewal contain high burn-up fuel?
No.
I'm sorry, was that a no?
Yes. Sorry. The answer is no. The answer is no. It's currently just low burn-up fuel.
Okay. And as it goes for the application, why is the dose rate not needed for the application?
So, are you referring to the question that was asked earlier by the NRC staff person?
Yes, I am.
So the dose rate, so we do have regulations in Part 72-104. We have the public dose limits in Part 72, and all licensees, including Dominion, are required to have a radiological environmental monitoring program to monitor, radiation from the ISFC and to make sure that they're meeting those. We do receive an annual submittal, and those are all publicly available on Adams. So, Erica, if you are interested in maybe the latest submittal of that, I can get you a copy of that in Adams. Is that something that you would be interested in?
Yes, it is. And I'm curious, too, when you say annual, is this taking just a total from the whole year, or is this actually broken down into dates?
I think whatever the monitoring frequency is, and I think for some sites it's quarterly, it would be essentially reporting of the quarterly results that they had for their radiation monitoring there at the site.
Okay. And then,
Erica, I'm actually going to cut you off there. We'll come back to you, but I do want to make sure that any other folks on the phone have a chance to ask any questions. So,
Mute off.
Oh, go ahead, Al.
Just one clarifying comment was that what Marlon was asking about was specifically under the cask, which is in contact with the concrete. So that's not something that's going to get it. That was just a question to see what the dose rates were about getting a camera in there and looking at workers, not.
Mute on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll go ahead.
Mute off.
Question for the NRC? Okay, go ahead, David.
And ADP? That's the requirements.
The Dominion saying it meets the requirements of the code, and as John Wise from NRC mentioned
When it comes
earlier.
down to it, the proof is in the pudding. Can it see the ASME standard card? If it can, the resolution is sufficient. So that's what we're going to be checking again.
Yeah, that's true.
ASME stands for American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and it's a boiler and pressure vessel code requirements for this inspection, type of inspection.
And David, did you have another question for the NRC? Okay. Are there any other members of the public on the phone who have any questions for the NRC?
Mute on.
Go back to you, Erica. It sounded like you had another question.
Yes, thank you. I'm curious if the dose rate increased on the pad since Dominion got that exemption for when the cask moved during our 2011 earthquake. Is there any difference in dose rate prior to then after, when the casks are now closer together than they were before?
The dose rates have gone up because we're adding more new boats. Look at the data. They've gone up since the earthquake. Only because we're loading additional units in the new home system, not because of anything that's happened.
Because of the earthquake.
Right.
Okay, Erica, did you have any other questions for the NRC?
Well, yes, because on one of the, I guess maybe the last meeting covering this whole issue of license renewal, it seemed that Dominion was picking the casks that were on the end because they said they were easier to get to. I'm just curious if maybe, something needs to be looked into on being able to, be able to examine more than just ones that are on the end. Because it sounded like from the meeting that, basically they weren't real easy to get to. So I thought maybe, to mention that. And then I also wanted to ask, what is causing the blistering? Because I heard it mentioned 2 times something about blisters.
Let's answer.
This is John Wise at the NRC. I'm just going to give it a generic answer. Paint and moisture and time, paint blisters. And we're talking about paint blisters is what we're talking about here, as opposed to, apparently, again, we'll look at the application, but apparently the base metal does not seem to be affected. But it really is about having moisture and paint, and over time, paint can break down.
And then one last thing, really.
We didn't give you an answer for the first part of your question.
Yeah, and I guess that it wasn't really a question. I think you were more making a statement, Erica. But so Dominion in that application they'll provide an explanation for why they chose the casks that they chose to inspect, and that is something that we'll look at as well as those results, and if those are representative, and with those results we will do our independent review. But that will also be explained in the application that Dominion submits.
And I think that it's also it's a slight misnomer to say that it was just the ends or just those canisters. From what we had in that public meeting back in fall, and it's reiterated here, there are walk-down inspections quarterly to see if there's any corrosion occurring on these casks themselves. And the casks are painted white. And so it's a very clear indication that if there is any kind of corrosion product coming out, it will contrast very well against the white, and thereby then they go into corrective actions to fix those locations. So, it's not just those that are at the edges, it's also all of them.
Well, thank you, and I can appreciate that. But I also recall on that last meeting that it was noted that corrosion had been noted on, I'm not sure how many,
Right.
And then it was asked if it was noted. And it seemed that there seems to be a lack of noting where, instead of just repainting them, that needs to be noted exactly where that corrosion was, in its history. So if you keep coming up with corrosion in those areas, maybe there's a problem.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I think that, I wasn't there at the site. I'm sure John or Christina can talk to it, but, yes, those are things that you can take a look at, but these things are very, very thick. And, we're talking about, if anything, tiny amounts of corrosion. And the corrective actions that were taken from the pictures that we saw back at that fall meeting showed areas where you could obviously see where it was repainted. It was like little square areas where they ground down and repainted. And, it's like anytime you want to repaint your wall in your house, you only paint one little section. You'll always see it, So you should be able to catch where these locations are pretty.
And I'll follow up on that. For the aging management programs that are going to start, coming up when this application, if we do approve the subsequent license, those aging management programs, one of the elements of that is trending what you're finding. So what we'll be looking at as reviewers when we're looking at their proposed aging management programs is, are they doing exactly what you're proposing? Which is, when they find stuff, are they noting it such that you can trend it with time and you find things to look back and see if things are getting worse, to identify exactly what you brought up. Maybe there's an area that's more prone to aging. That's a key component of an aging management program, and we'll be looking for that when we review the application.
Well, yes, that's good, and I do understand as it goes for an aging management program. But yeah, I definitely do believe that that's important, and at the last meeting, it was noted that Dominion wasn't doing that. So yes, it definitely needs to be looked at and noted when there's corrosion that's found. And I guess lastly, I missed the very first part because I didn't get on the phone in time. But how often are these examinations of, like, when they lift a cask? How often are these going to be?
And Erica, I didn't know that you were calling into the meeting since you didn't let me know ahead of time, but you will see the slides as part of the meeting report, and I guess there were some recommended enhancements that Dominion went over, and the thought is that there's opportunistic inspections, so sort of as those come up, and then also every 20 years.
Wow, 20 years. I don't know. I kind of feel like that, well, being that, number one, what was it, 24, 25 of the 27 casks actually moved during our earthquake. I would imagine that as things age, just like with the reactors, we're going to have increased surveillance, and we're going to actually probably have to be testing more. So that makes me feel a little uncomfortable thinking that it's just going to be a once in a 20-year time frame. So I would hope that the NRC looks at actually increasing the viewing and the inspections. Thank you.
And so, Erica, yeah, thank you. That's a good comment. Our reviewers here will take a look at the aging management program as the frequency is part of that, we will look at those frequencies to see whether or not we're comfortable with them. Let's just say that the time frames and frequencies are not set in stone. Okay, it is based upon operational experience, and so if there is operational experience that's within this fleet of type of tasks out there that's to support a shorter frequency, then that's what we'll be looking into. So please understand that what you see in these types of aging management programs at this point is it's a placeholder so that when we get more OPN, we will fine-tune the aging management programs going forward to ensure that we are meeting the right frequency for whatever degradation mechanism is of occurrence. Now, I will say that these cats are very thick at the base, we've already reviewed ones similar to this. We've seen similar types of, in fact, maybe worse type of anti-corrosion coating, in this case of the paint, other places we've got other things, but it is a very thick, robust base there, which is over 8 inches thick. And so we'll consider all these things when we come into whether or not we can approve the aging program that Dominion has provided.
And Erica, did you have any other questions?
Mute off.
Well, I guess basically, I think I covered quite a bit of things that concern me. But I still want to go back to say that y'all really need to look at maybe designing the pads themselves where they have a little bit easier access to the canister.
And Erica, is that your line? That's the background noise?
Not mine.
Mute on.
It has a background noise if you can mute your line. Now, is there anyone else on the phone who has a question, either members of the public or NRC folks, or members of the NRC on the phone? No? Okay, last call in the room, either NRC or Dominion folks.
Mute off.
David, did you have a second question? Excuse me? I don't think we have the details of that. I think in the application, in the application, Dominion will need to describe essentially the method they're going to use to inspect. So if they are doing a visual examination, they'll have to give essentially the stats, I guess, of the material, or I'm sorry, the equipment that they're using, and they'll need to demonstrate that does meet any consensus codes and standards and their criteria. So that will need to be in the application.
We were told it was a high definition. We don't know that.
Okay. Last call. Any final questions, comments?
Mute on.
So for the folks on the phone, I know there were some folks that did not let me know they were calling in. I think I got a couple of the names. But if you haven't emailed me to let me know that you called into the meeting or were planning to call into the meeting, if you could please do so after the meeting. My email is in the meeting notice. And that's just so we have a complete record of the attendees at the meeting. And as far as action items, I noted 2 action items for the NRC. I'm going to get information on the timely renewal date. So is that upon submittal or is that upon NRC acceptance? And I will confirm what I think the answer is, and that will be in the meeting summary. I'll make sure that gets in the meeting summary. And also Erica Gray, one of the members of the public on the phone, I'll provide her with a publicly available the radiological environmental monitoring report for the North Anna ISPC, whatever the last one was in Adams. I'll provide that to Erica separately. And with that, if there's no other questions or comments, I'll turn over to Al if you want to make any closing remarks.
Sure. I just wanted to reiterate that the process that we have with this application is something I hope we will follow in the future with other applications that come in. We had a successful fall pre-app meeting that described what you were looking at for your criteria for how you would, what type of inspections you were going to do, where you go through the flavor of how you're selecting, and then come back for this, and it helps inform us and you with the approach we're taking your license renewal application. And then we're all on the same boat in terms of there are no surprises when the application comes in. And so